Hi, everybody. We apologize for this technical problem that interrupted our broadcasting and that took us a while to solve. So thank you, Manuel and Lisa, for your patience. And let's go back. So we were still setting the scene. We had heard about Manuel's list of things he's keeping a close eye on, mainly consumer trends connecting with issues like sustainability, like transparency, like access versus ownership. So many things that are a list of trends that are being closely monitored by TMG and by Manuel. And I was throwing the ball to Lisa. Lisa, so you were explaining also from the work that you've been doing, advising the European Commission on the cross section between creative industries and technologies. What's your take? What is on your radar these days?
So the thing is, greetings from Brussels. What it will come up is across Europe, they are already laws going to in testing or already in place, which will actually strengthen the transparency and the sustainability of the value and omni-channel chain. It's already in law in France, in the Netherlands, and in Scandinavia. And in Germany, actually, they are drafting it. And it's actually a law which not only applies for textile industry, but for any kind of product manufacturing industries, which we will require to fully transparent show all of the bits and pieces you use to create a product from where it actually comes from. The idea is to prevent child labor, but also in the end of the day, for every manufacturer, that simply just means it's you have to transparently show from where all of the items you use to create your products actually come from. So this is now a big business concern. And also you need technology for that to just simply trace all of those things. I mean, to my friends in the textile manufacturing, we know, the embellishment, for any kind of garments. I have the highest respect for those people in with the bigs and boxes for the zippers, the buttons and something like that. So we already know how complicated it actually is to make a jacket. So now all of this has to become transparent. And this will happen. So this is kind of like the GDPR, from the European Commission, which we had. So this is going to be the GDPR for sustainability and transparency. So it's not a question if, it's just a question when and how. And there is a huge recommendation for all of the businesses out there to prepare, but also, me saying is use technology as a tool to help you. To track all of that. The other thing we're actually looking at, keeping in mind that I actually have a background in software engineering, but also I'm a business person. So, from the textile fashion sector, is if you just simply look at the numbers, who is the biggest fashion house in the world by numbers? It's Fortnite, a gaming platform. So they're making so much money with selling skins, which is something that people use to dress digitally. So, in terms of numbers, that should tell you something, but also, especially with the COVID crisis, we had a huge push into digitalization for virtual reality, augmented reality, digital skins everywhere. And again, digitization is not a trend. It's here to stay. And it actually requires a huge transition in skills, but as well also in business acumen. Just imagine if all of those very, very successful gaming companies out there decide to release a fashion brand. Because we have fashion designers in gaming. They don't call themselves fashion designers, but they're actually very successful. The other thing, actually, what I want to say is because we are moving into a hybrid digital offline world. So me, the future consumer, when I buy a handbag or a pair of shoes, I want to have the digital counterpart of that as well. So I can wear it when I do gaming or when I professionally meet somebody digitally. It's technically totally possible, but imagine that conversation in reality in our business. It's okay, so a serious textile engineer, on the machines. It's okay, so you have to work with a game designer now, because like the shoes you make or the textiles you make have to go online. It's, it kind of sounds like this typical, like, an engineer and a designer go to a bar, ... joke. But that is the reality. And I want to see this as an utter opportunity. This is actually going to be fun. Also, this is a huge opportunity for the old style industry to actually open up for the new style industry, because that's where like stuff gets cool again. And I'm actually really excited about it, because there are like a lot of opportunities around that. The other thing is like always been, that way very, I'm very, excited about the business of service. There is that rule in business, always has been, people pay for convenience. I just want to remind you in terms of like startups where, the online pizza delivery, I mean, like the recipe of the pizza was already invented. The concept of delivery was already invented, but actually connecting these dots together and turning that in a service created an entire huge business on its own. So like, yeah, of course, that can happen to the textile industry. It's like, who says only because I buy a jacket that I need to buy that, wear that jacket here and can't get delivered there? Why do I need to buy it only in that color when I actually, maybe for an extra service fee, I also would like to have the summer version, the winter version in orange, in black, whatsoever. Oh, you give me a special for the entire outfit. Thank you very much. You give me style advice. Thank you very much. Oh, you just tell me the weather has changed to the place where I want to go. Thank you very much. Oh, I can't travel. The digital version. Thank you very much. This is all service. Saying that also is like my, just as a reality check for the textile industry, is like there is now, especially for the COVID crisis, a lot of startups like, I don't want to say startups and like, just, fashion designers trying to make their own business. No, significant high stakeholders coming from a complete different industry, seeing an opportunity in this textile industry and going cross sector. So here is again, you have to ask yourself, do you want to see them as an enemy or do you want to see them as a friend, right? Go back in history. This has happened so many times before and before. I, of course, always want to see this as an opportunity, because there are like a lot of like really cool conversations coming up, but also it's like, you can help those cross-sector startups with your expertise in craftsmanship and like how things get done and make it more efficient and sustainable. So, be aware of your power. On the other side, be aware of their power, because they have learned the rules, so they just question all of the rules. They're just asking and resetting everything. So they can be gutsy also, they're gonna make, the mistakes maybe you don't want to do. So, at least just talk with them. And finally, education. So, all of the points, what I said is that at the end of the day, it's intersections. It's like, it's like, so you have to, on the one side, teach people how to communicate and work together. That means like they have to establish a language, a standard. If you talk with a software engineer and say the word production, and if you talk with a textile engineer and say the word production, it's the same word, but it actually means something entirely different. So there has to be a new standard, there has to be a new vocabulary, there has to be a new workflow. On the other side, there is like a whole new digital new generation, which can be utterly helpful for the digital translation, because they're natives. They just like need to, get more welcomed in this. For them, sometimes, because I've been talking a lot with these people, not that sexy industry. I actually like it. This is like super cool. This is like robotics, this is IoT. There are so many cool things you can do. So this is not about, convincing them. It's just like telling the story in a different way. And on the other side, the entire workforce, which is now in the industry, they have to be reskilled, they have to be upskilled, they have to be reprogrammed. So this is, again, a huge opportunity for a lot of educational institutions to find new ways to create new new education tools. But this is also, and here's the thing, is like, because, there are also going to be a lot of new education institutions who just like skip the line and just like jump on and say like, okay, so you need digitization training, we are here to help you. Finally, just as a little piece of thought, when I studied software engineering, that was before the time something called web designer actually was a university degree. And back then, it was, in the end of the day, it was a classical trained graphic designer and a software engineer merging together into the job, which we now know, web designer. And that was less than 15 years ago. So I went to university when, in my university, luckily, they made an experiment because they tried to combine, and I was one of those guinea pigs, like, look at the result, right? But just for inspiration, because like I went through that wave myself, so like this is what is going to happen. So like you need like a fashion and a industrialist and a business person and a digital person kind of like merge together. And the best way how to merge them together is with education and training.
Yeah. Super. I don't know, Manuel, if you want to comment already on this.
Yes, because it's funny you talk about Fortnite and the digitalization of textiles. And today there is technology available. The thing is, as you said before, we need to complement our knowledge with other knowledge from other people in order to be able to do it. And for example, we have an operation in retail, and what we are doing is developing, instead of presenting our models, our garments in real fabric, we are preparing ourselves to present them in a virtual way, where we design with virtual fabrics, with virtual designs, and then the client, for example, can create his own avatar. And for example, there is a company called 3D Look that with two mobile photographs, they can take the measures of your body. So they can translate those measures into the avatar, and then you can try the clothes virtually and see how it fits. And the system will tell you, well, show you the stretch of the fabric in certain parts of your body, and recommend you another size in order to fit you better. But this way you can try the clothes before you buy it, and see and try new looks before you start using it. So that's something that we are working on it. And it will be funny to see how clients will react seeing or buying online, instead of having pictures, as you can see today, of real clothes, start to see virtual clothes, which is very close, because today technology can reproduce very, very closely the textures of the fabrics, the drape of the fabrics. So it's very close to reality. And in terms of avatars today, there are programs that really can recreate the person's faces, the hair, with a lot of realism. And these companies that are working in this digitalization, either they work for movie makers, they either for gamers, and of course, it's funny because then you can start to sell virtual clothes for them to use in their social networks, in their games, so there is a huge opportunity of business. The thing is, and as Lisa told, well, we are industrial company, so we have skills on how to do it, how to make it. We understand the industrial process to produce a garment, but we need to either hire new competence or train people ourselves in order to combine the skills of textiles and how things are doing with the design and with the digitalization. So it's quite a challenge, but quite fun to see how this is going to evolve in the future. So it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, Manuel, I think we need to create another intersections webinar with the two of you and also Veronica Orvalho from Didimo. There's a startup in Porto that is developing the avatars, and actually they believe that the future of communication will be, of course, virtually and online, and instead of just texting as we are doing now on WhatsApp or recording voice messages, we will have our own avatars that are lookalikes, but really lookalikes from a simple picture from our phone. But let's imagine that I want to dress my avatar differently today, and there's something interesting going on, and I think it will be a nice debate also if we bring the avatar industry here. Veronica Orvalho, this is a startup from the University of Porto, who is raising lots of funding and doing quite well and growing, but it is quite interesting as it covers this topic. Manuel, let me pick on something. I don't want to. I love the futuristic aspect of this, and those who know me know that that's my field. But let me take a step back, because this is everything that you are trying to identify in the future, that you are trying to understand the impact, that you are measuring, trying to identify between all that noise, what are the signals that are stronger. So this connects a lot with your exploration activity. So the way you're analyzing these trends, technology and consumer changes, this is a lot about your Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 innovation activities, where you're thinking about what will be your business model in 5, 10, or 15 years. But simultaneously at TMG, you have to pay the salaries at the end of this month. By the way, this month you also have to pay Christmas subsidy Natal, and you have to. It's close to the end of the year, so it's about analyzing the results and distributing dividends and so on. So this becomes a bit schizophrenic. What we're asking is that companies become ambidextrous, that TMG can simultaneously be the best at exploring these macro trends and building proactively it's your future business model, but at the same time, you need to exploit the current business model, because the current business model pays salaries, dividends. What is it like for you in the board of administrators to have this balance between the future and trying to explore your future viability, but simultaneously having to exploit your current viability and making way for future viability?
Of course, but there are trends that we cannot ignore. Of course, this is a little bit more futuristic, although technology is there, so it's not that futuristic as we might think. I believe in the near future we will have this currently in the market rolling. But there are other things that we have to look today in order to guarantee that our business goes well. And there are some trends, as Lisa said in the beginning, and their connection with the European Commission is about sustainability and transparency, because this will bring an opportunity for the Portuguese industry today. So today and in the near future, because the biggest problem the industry suffered in Europe in the last 10 years, 15 years, was the fact that we are competing with countries that have no respect for social matters, they have no respect for environmental matters, they have no respect for workers. So that gave us put our competitiveness in a worse situation. But I think these movements that the European Commission is taking in order to increase the transparency and give, at the end of the day, the consumer can make an informed purchase, that will bring the nearshore and the onshore industry, because it doesn't make sense for you to be buying something that has traveled off of the world in order to get to you. So the carbon footprint is huge, and so on. So we are developing with other companies in Portugal, and especially the textile cluster, which is very strong in Portugal, and companies are getting together to understand how they can overpass and develop new technology to be ready for these changes and take profit from that. Because in Europe, Portugal, at the end of the day, as the biggest cluster, textile cluster in Europe, so there is a big opportunity for companies like TMG. And one thing that we are working on is to create, it's like the blockchain technology, where every production process is a layer of information. So the consumer at the end of the day with a QR code can take a picture to his QR code in his garment and understand where the raw material comes from, where the fabric comes from, where the garment was made, how much water was spent, what is the carbon footprint of that garment. So that information, and because it's under the blockchain technology, that will allow more
full traceability.
Information. I remember a brand and the other day they put in the market a sweatshirt with respect, alleging that it's sustainable and so on and so on. And someone went to track where that garment was made. So he went to Bangladesh into a company that there was no respect for workers, there were no social support, there was no environmental care. So what is this? You know, you just put something in your shirt and then you are sustainable. The consumer is becoming more aware and they accept that kind of attitude from the brands. So that's one point that we are taking care of. Then there are others, because we have to be competitive. In order for us to be competitive today, we have to look at artificial intelligence. We have to work big data in order our industrial process to become more efficient and less waste. So in this context, we can increase our competitiveness and reduce the wastage on the products. And other things, for example, if you start to have an ID in your garments, then you can understand if it is, for example, one other thing that we are working is how can we eco-design? So how can we design garments that at the end of the day, they can be recyclable? Because if you use certain raw materials or mixtures of raw materials, at the end of the day, you cannot shred and transform again in a garment, because you spend too much money in order to separate the components. So it's important for companies and for designers to develop products that are attractive in terms of design, in terms of functionality to the consumer, but at the same time is circular. So you can reuse the raw materials and turn it into new garment pieces. So there is many things that we are addressing today in order to capture this opportunity, since the European Commission is trying to guarantee that everything is used in Europe, is bought in Europe, is sustainable, respects the environment, respects the people, and is economical sustainable. And transparency will bring an advantage for our industry. So that's where we are relying on, and that's the today problem that we have to solve. And tomorrow is Fortnite, and create and bring game designers into the game, and start producing designs for either for real world and for the virtual world, because I think it's a huge market that we are not addressing. But if we can fuse these two worlds into one, we might have the kids playing Fortnite and use the clothes as the characters in the game. So it will be something that we have to look at in the future.
This is a huge transformation process for the whole industry, and it's urgent in some sense. Lisa, you've been making the case for collaboration, for co-creation, for open innovation. No company can do it alone and will do it alone. And Manuel, you mentioned how well organized the cluster in Portugal is and so on. So how's it going, that collaboration, Lisa, from your point of view? Because especially now that you are more and more familiar with our ecosystem and the fact that we have many SMEs that are sometimes very dependent from major players like Inditex and so on. So there are different realities within the cluster. How do you see the case for collaboration, for open innovation, for co-creation? Well, around Europe, of course, but in the Portuguese cluster.
I think it's like, it's all about like different layers of mindset. This is not about like if you actually can do it, because the machines can do it, the technology is there. It's always about like the people who are actually using the machines and running the companies. So this is the mindset. And for me, it's like it doesn't make a difference if it's like a big company or a small company. What I'm interested is like, okay, it might sound a little bit crazy, but like at least let me go into your door and let's sit down for a cup of tea and let's talk about it and open up your mind to do something different. Because, your grandfather who started the company, he was a little bit crazy. That's why he started all of that. So, I mean, like, I come from a textile family, so I know all of that. That there's a certain kind of like decentness and craziness, but also like really hands-on ability in doing what you're doing, especially in the textile industry. The thing is like that, of course, in a time where we all scared, where we all worried, where we all frustrated and angry because this is not fair and everybody is allowed to feel that way, to talk about crazy things like digitalization and Fortnite. And, if you give me a little bit more time, I will talk about space travel. So it's like, we can't afford this. Like, we have to pay now. But the thing is like, innovation is a transition journey. Real innovation happens step by step. So there are things you can already do. So like, for instance, in terming, so knowing that this European legislation will come. So you can already internally start to talk with your people and look, you have the workflow already set up. How to get the buttons, knowing where is your textiles, which machine is running, something like that. Already think about a workflow, how to digitize it and track it. There are several ways how to do this. Start as simple as a Google spreadsheet. It can go as further as like, Internet of Things and like bringing your offline machine online or something like. But at least this is a resource you already got. You have brains, you have people, you have experience. You can at least have a round table and say like, look, this is coming. Can we just put our minds together? Very pragmatic, doesn't cost you a lot, but at least think about it. Because for me, it's like in life, there's nothing like luck. There's only opportunity meets preparation. Right. So, and if in a big picture, if we see it's like from a European perspective, and by the way, and I totally know what Manuel was saying is because in the last years, there were a lot of European restrictions in terms of chemical dyes for textiles, which were actually were really difficult for the textile industry because it made us less competitive because like other competitors outside of Europe were still using those chemical dyes and we've lost customers, right? What actually also those upcoming legislations, they will be our firewall exactly with the GDPR. Not everybody is going to be useful, but this is also helping us. You have to see it kind of like a soccer game, right? The local team always is an advantage because the field, the temperature, how it is. It's your local crowd. Of course, the rules are for everyone. You all had good trainers, you all have good experience. But the local team is always a little bit in advantage, Exactly. However, doesn't mean you're going to win the game. So, I just want to be very pragmatic about it. You can do things, everyone, doesn't matter if you're a small company with a handful of people or a big company. It's like everything starts with thinking. It's like the first thing what you learn when you go to, be trained as an engineer. It's like before I let you go to a computer, think first. So, But also, I want to give a little bit hope, especially in the context of Portugal. And yes, there is a reason why I'm here and why I moved here, because I did an assessment for many years. It's like if, and it, in a very funny way, like what after the now during the COVID crisis actually just has strengthened that. It's like, look at Europe in a whole. Europe has done the mistake of offshoring manufacturing and production outside of Europe. That was a big slap in our face during the COVID crisis. So also, hello from Brussels, they kind of understood that now. Of course, they're a little bit slower, but message has been received. So if you look from a European perspective, who else has such a knowledgeable cluster infrastructure with very short ways where you have like the packaging company next to the buttons, next to the finishing, next to the textile, next to like everything what you actually need to make a garment or like any kind of manufacturing product, you know, injection molding, ceramic, something like that. I could do this on a bicycle, you know, if I go around and, you know, meet my friends in manufacturing. That is very unique in Europe. You know, also, you know, I know that from Germany is like, because, you know, the ability to actually produce in that quantity just has been totally offshored. I grew up in a region in Germany which has used to be huge in textile and totally vanished in the 80s and 90s. My grandfather was a weaver. I was supposed to, you know, go into the trade, but there was nothing there. So I'm like a part of the lost generation. So this time in Portugal, especially in Porto, I want to see we have an opportunity here. Porto and the region is the north of Portugal is going to become so important in the next years because there are people who can do stuff, right? Exactly. And that is important. And everyone, every little company and every bigger company are a part of that, but not alone. So we have to help and, you know, bring people together on a local level, on a European level, but of course also on an international level, because, you know, we kind of live on the same planet in the end. We kind of like realized that in the last month. So, yeah.
Manuel, I don't know. I was seeing you nodding, and I don't know if you want to comment or.
No, I totally agree. I think Europe made a huge mistake in the past. Probably they thought in Brussels that the brands could be in Europe and the arms would be offshore. But the thing is, if you don't produce, you don't industrialize your knowledge, you end up to lose that knowledge. So that's what happened. Actually, in 2008, 9, 10, when the textile industry suffered a lot in Portugal, I always thought that if you lose critical mass of companies, there would be no reason for us to exist, because it doesn't matter. You cannot have a textile company alone in a region, because the textile business is very complex and there are many technologies associated, and no company can have all these technologies itself. So it's important these small companies and bigger companies, but very specialized in certain technologies, where we can cooperate with them and create better products and new products. So it's very important. And one thing that Portugal has, and the north of Portugal, is this cluster, textile cluster, and of course the shoes also the same, where have many companies with different specialities, and all this together makes us strong. If we are not, we cannot be strong alone. That's why it's been very important, the clusterization of textile in Portugal, and the role of CITEV, the Technological Center for Textile Industry, and CENTI, which works more the raw materials and the materials that we can use also on the textiles. Very important to bring companies together and to make them work in cooperation in order to be stronger. But I think, and Lisa brought a point here. It's important also, and we are now looking to that, to bring people with other skills, namely in technology, in digitalization, in data scientists, in other things that we have no clue, we have no competence on that, but we have to build them in order to create new opportunities, new business models that we can really profit from these contest. And one other thing is a lot of small brands are appearing because they are looking to new opportunities. I always compare with the music industry in the past. So probably in the 60s, 70s, you had one or two bands very famous like Rolling Stones or Beatles, and everybody else was almost nothing. And today you have so many famous musicians because they can present themselves to the public much more easier. Because today, if you go to YouTube, you have Spotify, you have, and sometimes I remember when I was young, I could name all the songs and all the singers. And today I know music that I don't even know which person is singing. I just like the music. So I think in the fashion and with the digitalization, with the proximity from the consumer to the production, and the companies today, they can present their products much more easier, because once you are communicating on the internet, you are communicating for millions of people, something that could not be done in the past without spending millions of money. So many brands will come. And I think internet is bringing new opportunities. I always say one thing. There are two things in the world that will not disappear: whoever consumes and whoever produces. Everybody else in the middle can disappear. So, and we are seeing that. We are seeing that many more companies are communicating directly with the consumer. They are fulfilling the needs of the consumer, and that will bring consumers and production all together, and smaller companies, but closer to each other. So I think we will live in a future era with a lot of opportunities.
But Manuel, let me jump here, and I'll try to frame in a question that we have from our audience, which in some aspects has been already answered by you guys. It's from Ana Margarida Alves, thank you, regarding the main, concerning modern market changes and introduction of AI and other technologies in the production scene. So what would be the newest challenges that expect us as Portuguese manufacturers in the textiles field? But let me frame this question in a different way, because you mentioned a lot the brands, the emergence of brands, how easy it is for brands to come up. They have platforms, they have access to consumers. It is, in some sense, democratized. But actually, in Portugal, we don't have that many brands. So typically, we are mainly on the manufacturing side, meaning that we are part of a supply chain of a brand. So typically, this has been faced by many business people in the industry as being a problem. So we are on the bottom of the chain. So we are very dependent, highly dependent from whoever owns the brand. And some of the positioning in the last years have been, okay, but brands need know-how. And so we don't only sell manufacturing, we sell know-how, we sell innovation capacity, we sell provocation, we sell possibilities. We don't sell production, we sell possibilities. And we know there's a movement in the Portuguese manufacturing sector. Do you feel that it's enough to put us in a competitiveness, in a competitive stage, or do you feel that we also need more Portuguese globally thinking brands, but Portuguese based, and the fact that we don't have that many global Portuguese brands it will always be a problem for the sector and stopping the sector from growing.
Yes, I think in the past it was very difficult for a Portuguese brand to succeed, because first you have to succeed in your own country, in your own field. And Portugal is a very small country. We are only 10 million people, and it's very hard to gain financial strength launching a brand in Portugal, and then start the internationalization of that brand. What I think today, and it's easier because you with the right tools and with less money, you can start the internationalization in phase zero, because once you start presenting your products, you are presenting to the world, and especially if you focalize your brand in a digital, in a internet online sales, you can it is possible. So, but the lack of tradition in Portugal to create brands, it will take some time for companies to succeed. But we also see that Portugal is an industrial cluster, so many entrepreneurs that will eager to launch their own brands, it doesn't matter if it is Portuguese or Spanish or whatever, they will come to Portugal, because if they establish in this area, they can really create different things and new things and different things and everything, because the cluster is very complete and a lot of technologies are available in this region. So I think sooner or later, either Portuguese or either foreigners with more experience on creating brands, they will end up to come to Portugal. Because if you want to create an infrastructure like we have in Portugal, you would spend a lot of money. And so we have the competitive advantage because we have the infrastructure already created. So even if you want to increase capacity, it's only we have to buy a few machines, not to create.
And you need a lot of time, which nobody has.
Yes.
Can I just jump in?
Yes, we had conversations about this, right, Lisa? Yes. So give us your take.
My take is actually there is one very particular, very strong expert, and that is knowledge.
Yeah.
And that is the knowledge coming from that there is a cluster system, there is an infrastructure, there is history, family businesses where, there's everybody says hey, it's I fix this for you in 30 minutes. And the reason why I can do this is because I've been doing this for 10 years and you're going to pay me for those 10 years, not for those 30 minutes. And that is the thing is, I want to support the Portuguese industry is to have the strength and the self-esteem to ask for payment for those 10 years, not for those 30 minutes. Because to be super critical about that is should we now talk about it to create even more brands, more products? On the other side, we're talking about sustainability, Green Deal, full circle and something like that. On the other side, we need more brands, different brands whatsoever, just to be the devil advocates in the room. I don't have a solution for that, but they're two different conversations, in all kind of different channels. I think that it's driven by of course we have to make money somehow because we have to feed our people somehow and our family, and the glass of wine you need after a whole long day after running a company and running around for a company and something like that, right? So in the end of the day is we have to create value to survive and have a good life. The interesting thing is the balance is that what now we have more opportunity in terms of timing. The fact is that the end consumer wants to know from where their product comes from. They want to know, the Master George who sits on a knitting machine and can tell you for hours what they do, right? People love that. They want to know the story behind the yarn. They want to know, the environment and like what kind of travel is it like. They're very conscious of like how much CO2 footprint it has, the item it has, because like if that button comes from Bangladesh and that zipper from Japan, but it gets made in Europe, just to be said like, okay, it's made in Italy, it's, if we would have this conversation 5-10 years ago, everybody would laugh about us because like the market is not ready. There is no like consciousness about it. But the fact that you use recycled materials, or you try to do off-cut, or you use the highest sustainable manufacturing, Ecotex, certifications as much as possible, that is actually now your marketing campaign. That is your brand. And that is, by the way, all of those other music bands, thanks for that, Manuel, which are coming in. It's like, I just want to remind you, it's like, the huge punk movement, they didn't let themselves stop for the fact that they couldn't play their instruments. They were just really good on stage. Right? So, I think also it's like there is a whole opportunity to like rediscover and show what Portugal actually to have. It's like this is like me in the end of a journey for many years and just like being in awe of like what people can do. Also keep in mind, people simply don't know. The end consumer doesn't know how things get made. The electricity comes out of the power socket. People are just like not aware of it. And the reason is also because like the traditional fashion brands, it was in their interest to not have the end consumer know from where their things come from and who is making them. Because like, why do I need a brand now if I actually know that I can go to that person who actually makes it? So be aware of your power. That is the thing is like brands come and go. To say like, Project Runway Heidi Klum in fashion, one day you're in, and the next day you're out. That is branding, but the factory will stay. And I think, again, what I said earlier is like, this is all about mindset. If you're aware of your power and it's like, I have knowledge, I can save you a lot of time just simply because I have the capability, I have the infrastructure, I can deliver you the whole sustainability made in Europe. Yes, and also my seamstress is okay that you make a photo of her with the, I made your T-shirt, Dear Maria, head of seamstress, it's like she would have never, who's been in this job for like 40 years, she would have never thought that she's going to become a model on social media called Instagram, right? But like that is the cool stuff. What is happening now? Just use it. We are now talking about very realistic tools, things you already have. You don't have to put millions in, because the reason why all of these huge, startups and new companies need to raise so much money because they have to build an infrastructure. You already have it. Now it's about services, connections, mindset.
Yeah,
we have a bubble.
It's about really the possibilities, understanding that the manufacturing companies' business, especially in textile, is to sell possibilities. So one way to see this thing is to cry about the fact that they are dependent from brands. The other way to see this is to make brands dependent from their capacity and turn themselves absolutely valuable and indispensable for big brands, because they need the ones that can really turn their vision into life. And actually their vision very often can be influenced by the technical possibilities that manufacturing industry presents. That's why you see more and more designers on the shop floor, understanding with whom, with the ones that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You see designers going back to the original craftsmen and craftswomen to understand these kind of possibilities, and then crossing that with gaming and virtual and there's a lot to be explored there. And I think and now, sorry, I quit the jacket of moderator and I became a little bit also giving my opinion because I know the damn
that
sector.
Means we got you so excited that you have just joined a band. Let's get a band together.
I know the DEM sector quite well for many years. I live in the region, and I know the people, and I know the stories. And actually, one thing that you mentioned, and I'll try also to make some sort of summary, executive summary of our debate, because we're running short on time. A lot about everything you mentioned about the transparency, and connected with the transparency to protect the consumer, to understand, to enforce health, environment, and safety regulations. But that's why you build this idea of traceability. But actually, that transparency is a way not only to disclose your compliance, but it's also a way to disclose stories. And the Portuguese industry is very good on these stories. So I know where the cotton came from with the QR code that you have, Manuel. I know where the cotton came from, how long it took to be dispatched to Portugal, where it was stored, how it was transformed. But I also know that the person that picked up that cotton was José, that has been with TMG for 12 years, and is so passionate about that. That's the kind of possibilities you're selling to your customers. Is these stories. And all the things that you mentioned. So on the consumer trends, the transparency, the ownership versus access, the digitalization, the everything as a service, even the advisory, the curating, the subscription model. It's all about moving from transactional to relational. And then in Portugal, we are good at relationships. We're good at telling stories. We're good at building and nurturing these relations. So I'm a very optimistic. Well, by nature, I'm a very optimistic. Those of us that live in the future, right, Lisa? We need to be optimistic. Otherwise, we have no reason for it to exist. But I'm pragmatically optimistic regarding the textile industry. Of course, there's a balance between all the hard aspects of the business and the circumstances that are always and for instance this current year, the pandemic was such a test to the industry, because it was a crisis both on the market side but also on the supply chain side. It was I think the first crisis ever that had problems in both sides, on the supply side and on the market side. So the resilience, and I hate the word, but I have to use it for the textile industry because that has been a resilience, can be attached to this technological opportunities. The idea that textile industries are, as any other business right now, data businesses, technological businesses, digital businesses. Even if you are still producing traditional garments, everything will be digitally based. And I see great opportunities here, because once again, if our business people like Manuel, like companies like TMG, can keep on interpreting this idea that it's a knowledge-based industry. It's an innovation-based industry. It's not only a low production cost industry, actually. And I agree with you, Lisa. We need to charge for the expertise. We need to charge for the tradition.
Please, charge. See, the thing is so, just to jump in again, but in terms of when we're looking at a hybrid business model, which is half manufacturing, half digital. So it's actually great because you do product diversification. So you also if one thing goes up and down, cluster systems are also not only work in software engineering, they work in business models too. But also they nurture each other and they support each other. So, but then there's not only this and that, then there is the whole circle around it, which is actually the service and the knowledge around it and to help. And again, being aware of that, I'm trying to teach my manufacturers, if you don't, if somebody asks you for a sampling process, that is the most expensive part of production. Freaking charge for it. That is the most expensive thing. And, if a designer comes to you and they're not interested in oh, I don't care, just make it here, give you a napkin and do it. It's yeah, I can do that, but it's going to cost you body. Right. So, again, we call it service. In software engineering, we call it premium subscriptions, so, the thing is the value is there, and the demand will increase. We are now shifting towards like, of course, fast fashion will always be a part of it, but like you have to make a decision if you want to do this, if you actually want to have like happy employees and, you know, and not trouble and everything. There will be a market for it, but there is a market for it where you can charge decent money for the service of the story, of the transferability, and the service of like the feel good price. The shift is now going that you have to see, you know, customers see themselves as a micro investor in your business. They say like, okay, you know, we can't do 150% bulletproof sustainability now, but we will try. And with the purchase of this item, you will help and support us to go down that journey. So you just take those customers on a journey. You don't have to be perfect, but at least we are trying. So you give a bit of responsibility to them in order to let them into the back door and let them sit on the kitchen table digitally. So there is going to be a whole new relationship about customer and supplier. And quite frankly, like the Portuguese are the most welcoming people, creating kitchen tables, you know, where the nana is on the table and, you know, grandpa comes in and tells a story, and then like the youngster come in and just do something. You know, this is also a cultural thing, right? So like I see all of those dots in the room. Opportunities are always there in the world. It's up to you if you actually see them and connect the dots.
Exactly. Yep. Guys, we're chasing against time. Let me give you a minute each for the one thing that we should have talked about and we didn't. Or at least to some conclusion, or what are strong ideas that you want to underline here for our audience. Lisa, you want to start?
I need a minute to think about it. Manuel, do you want to go?
No, just to finish. Yes. Okay. I think you did a good summary of the subjects that we discussed here, and the opportunities that this will bring to the industry. But one thing is selling clothes. It's telling stories also. And for example, we have some clients that want to take pictures from the people that are doing the clothes. They want to tell stories about those people, and I think even more that will intensify. So people will want to know where their clothes are coming from and the stories they can tell about it. Actually, we are developing a new business model that, well, if I gather the talent to do it, because it's not easy, but will bring a new generation of creation, of creators that have access to a platform and access to a community of consumers and a community of producers and small producers. And it's a platform that it's like an ecosystem where designers, fashion designers, producers, consumers meet together to do business. And I believe these people will have success because they are artists, first of all, and secondly, because people will be buying stories, not clothes.
Well, thank you. Lisa.
Oh, that was so wonderful. Big picture. From January next year onwards, Portugal will have the EU presidency. Yeah. So Portugal has a very unique, very interesting timing opportunity for 6 months to show what Portugal is all about. And this is about stories. This is about, you know, it's like, hey, welcome to Portugal. But did you know? Let me tell you a story, right? Exactly. Of course, those things are like more, you know, in the past, it was all about like a lot of events and something like that. But the thing is it's about stories. The channels might change, and we might sit around a digital bonfire, which, you know, is a video platform here and there. But like in the end of the day, people want to hear stories. So I challenge everyone out there, like any kind of like Portuguese politician, like ask them what they want to talk about in Portugal, and then just say like, okay, we need to talk about artisan craftsmanship, sustainability, textiles, whatsoever, because we have a unique opportunity for the next 6 months to tell our story on a huge platform. It's kind of like the YouTube for policy and politics and something like that, in order to make it sexy. That's why we got Justin Bieber. You have light and shadow. But seriously, this is a huge opportunity. This is about nobody hears you when you don't scream. You can do it in a very polite way, but still scream.
Exactly.
Put on a show.
Yeah.
Manuel, Lisa, thank you so much for this fascinating discussion. Let's agree that we do this in a couple of months, or 3 or 4 months again, and perhaps we even bring Veronica Orvalho from Didimo to talk about the avatars and how we will dress them, and how TMG will dress those avatars in the future, perhaps. This was a great intersection between technology and tradition, and I love this approach. Thank you so much to both of you for being such a wonderful guests. Thank you for everybody in the audience, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you
very much. Thank you, Lisa. Bye bye.
Thank you.